I want you to give a very warm welcome to some guests today as they come to speak with us, to dialogue with us, to answer questions, to have a conversation about these topics of collaboration, staying viable over the course of a career, over the course of a mission and ministry, and how to, what's the other thing I said we were going to talk about? How to hear God's voice. He didn't tell me that at the time, evidently. So would you please welcome Maya Harrison. Please welcome Maya. Maya, come and join us. Maya, you can pick one. Smitty Price. Smitty, we welcome you. And Brian Wurzel. Brian, come on up. I've met everyone except Maya previously, but Maya I just met for the first time. Just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background, and we'll go from there.
Hi, everyone. Wow. It's an honor to be here. It's very exciting. APU is very cool. My name is Maya, as he said. I am worship coordinator at Hillside Community Church. It is a joy and a privilege to serve that community. I grew up in Maryland, in Baltimore County.
All right.
What's up? I was born in California, but grew up on the East Coast and made my way slowly but surely back home after about 20-ish years. And here I am.
Welcome. We're so glad you're here. Smitty.
Thank you.
Yep, my name is Smitty Price. I'm married. I have 3 kids. I have 2 daughters, 38 and 35, and then a son that's 23. He's the drummer in a band called Lovely the Band, and so they've got a song that's really breaking. So he's a happy camper right now. And I was one of you guys in 1970. Come on. Yeah. Wow. Long time ago. So I attended Azusa Pacific College from 70 through 74, graduated as a music major in composition and theory, and then did a 5th-year teaching credential, and then entered the music biz, the secular music biz first. And we'll probably talk some more about that.
Yeah, definitely. Brian.
Brian Wurzel, and I'm married to the one that was worth the wait. It's worth it. It's worth it. All the girls said, where are the fellas? Come on, fellas. They're like, I don't know. We'll see about this guy. Yeah. I grew up in Yucaipa, California. Come on, somebody's from the IE, right? Somebody's from the IE represent. So I grew up in Yucaipa, California, and grew up in a little Baptist church here called Yucaipa First Baptist, and kind of God opened my eyes to the wonder of music through that little church. And fast forwarding my journey, didn't know I was going to be in any kind of music work in my life, but 16 years later, I've been in full-time ministry doing music, and it's the surprise of my life to be sitting in front of all of you and with you, Dr. Sutton. It's an honor to be here. And now I'm the worship pastor at Hillside Community Church. Been there for 6 years in Rancho Cucamonga.
Wow. So that's the thing that brings all of these 3 together is Hillside Community Church. And I love today's panel because sort of young, still young, but older.
On the way to middle age.
On the way to middle age, and then middle age. So,
Middle age. I like that middle age. That's good. Thanks.
But I love the spectrum of sense of longevity and career and beginning career and excitement. Maya, I think I got this right. This is your first sort of full-time stop in terms of ministry. And you've been there, you said 6 years, I think?
Yeah.
And Smitty, how long have you been at Hillside?
14 and a half.
14. So again, we have a team that's new, been there a bit, sort of the veteran. How would you guys describe, maybe first of all, what you do? Who's in charge? Is there someone in charge of this group? Is it all the same in terms of input and output? Just how do you guys function as a group?
Come on, we got to go to Smitty for that.
Okay.
Well, I'm the music director, so I organize rehearsals and prep materials and get everybody prepared to go every weekend. They come with amazing regularity, so that's my main focus every week, making sure that happens.
So Smitty, as I interpret that, are you the glue that keeps everything together then in terms of music director?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
Yeah, I coordinate. I do all the arrangements, vocal, band, get the band happening. Harmony, who's not here, she's ill today. She's one of our worship leaders, along with Brian and Maya. And she kind of coordinates the vocal rehearsal and kind of fine-tunes things, both with whoever's on that week leading. Sometimes it's Brian and Harmony.
Okay, great. And
On
Maya,
a-
what's your function in
I was
that?
gonna say on a management level, Brian's the guy. He's our pastor. He's
He's our
He's-
worship pastor.
he leads our team.
So understand, worship director, worship pastor. Is that, okay. Yeah. Anything, and Maya, what's your role in this?
My role is worship coordinator, which means I do the things. I do lots of things. I wear lots of hats, but what I love about our team is that we function as a team, and how we, not even just our like worship team, but even broadly, like as it relates to tech and all the weekend things, our communications department, all those different entities that make up the whole, we all collaborate as one team.
In your role?
Yeah, I feel like my role is to bring almost some prophetic vision to our future, to bring a sense of where are we going and how are we getting there, and then to help sort of bring the team, both staff, and then, if we include our choir and all of our band, we have 2 locations in the Inland Empire. I think we're nearing almost 200 musicians in our roster, and that's probably without students. Our student ministries teams are going, and we're developing a whole nother generation of young artists that are going to come up and hopefully replace us. That's the dream.
Yeah.
And
that number would be beyond the 200 that you just
yeah, I
mentioned.
think if we included them, it would probably be exceeding 200.
So let's talk a little bit, because I'm just thinking, Maya called you worship pastor. So, I mean, it does make sense if you're leading a ministry of 200, many people would be thrilled to have a church that big. So how do you pastor? What's that role? And how do you guys maybe observe him pastoring in terms of 200 people from all walks of life, different ages, different needs and wants? How do you view yourself, and how does that work its way in a practical way to pastoring the musicians of your church?
That's a great question. I feel like I'm on a journey of continuing to learn that role and that call of being a pastor. And again, I really think so much of my role is to equip the saints to do the work of the ministry. And so that's what we're trying to do, giving it away more than keeping it for myself. And so I find in this season of my life, there's probably the tension to manage between wanting to do a lot still. I still feel like, I don't know if this is totally true, but sometimes in my mind I feel like maybe worship leaders kind of have a shelf life, and I want to be the first to know about it so that somebody doesn't have to tell me. But I just, if that's the case, if it's true that there's a point where I'll need to exit stage left, I want to be the first one to know about it. And so that means to build a ministry that's lasting, investing in other people, calling up other young leaders, and developing young leaders to lead the way. I think our staff right now, our youngest staff person would be, are you the youngest? No, it's Christian. So I think with like 21, literally they could lead any one of our environments, which includes, leading in front of maybe 1,000 people at any given moment to any smaller environment up and down our organization and our ministry flow. So for me, that's the goal, giving it away and trying to step aside more, but also setting the dreams and the goals for these musicians and these artists and these future pastors and leaders to shepherd and bring people along with us to where God's trying to take us.
Yeah. Maya, Smitty, how might you observe Brian in terms of a pastoral role for 200 plus people?
Well, when you first asked the question, the first word that came to me is, he is an incredible encourager. He is a living expert at that. And he makes everybody in our team feel wanted, appreciated, and that's not to be underestimated at all. People want to be, I don't care who you are. I don't care how talented, if you come from your top of the class at Juilliard, top of the class at APU, you want to be appreciated. And he does a phenomenal job of that. I don't even know if he knows it. I think he does, but he does that so well.
Well, how do you guys function? We were talking a little bit about the topic of collaboration. So how do you guys do that? I find some people really good at that. I find some people really struggle with that. They sort of want to be a lone ranger and do it all, or just think it all, and then it's their vision. And others maybe have comments or suggestions, or hey, have you ever thought about, I find some people are more innately predisposed to collaborate and to have a team. I heard you mention the word team, and I think others are maybe not. And the older I get, the more it's very, very clear that that's an important skill set, the skill set of collaboration in terms of whether you're in the studio, out on the road. I watched a documentary on the Doobie Brothers recently, which dates me really far, but they talked a lot about how they collaborated together and how challenging that was and wonderful it was at the same time. But how do you guys do that, and what are their hallmarks of collaboration that are necessary?
I think for one, it's recognizing that each person has been gifted uniquely and offers something different, different set of skill sets, strengths, opportunities for growth, but there's something different that each of us adds to our team dynamic. Like Brian is a visionary. I'm a little more administrative and sometimes more organized, if I'm being honest.
You do resemble that. And I resemble the other side at times.
But there's, I think when you know that you can't do all the things for yourself and that there are others around you who propel you further in the things that you can do, and you do that same thing for them, it's easier to submit yourself to a collaborative effort.
I know for me, especially coming off the Super Bowl, I've always loved teams. As a kid, I love sports. I love being in sports. Mixing baseball practice with piano practice, that kind of thing. But anyway, so I love the teamwork involved. And we all buy into the vision of our senior pastor big time. And so it's not hard for us to, as individuals, embrace that. And then as a team, like Maya was saying, realizing the impact that varied, different kinds of individuals can bring to that team. And so we do that. And then love for each other and respect for each other. That's huge. You got to have that.
So what are some of the qualities of a good collaborator that you notice in people?
I would say for me, I had a mentor in my early 20s. By the way, if you don't have a mentor, you gotta get a mentor. Mentors they're the secret sauce of life. And I feel like if you'll
Okay, let's stop you right there. Okay. So we're going to get back to the question. Maya, since you're the organized one on this group, if you can remind us what the question was in terms of what are the qualities of a good collaborator. So you mentioned mentoring. What are the qualities to look for in a mentor? I think we hear that word a lot.
Yeah.
And so, hey, I got a mentor. Well, what's that mean? We have coffee once a week. What do we talk about? Well, so what are the qualities of a mentor? And you can answer that from your perspective, obviously.
Dr. Sutton, you're my favorite because you'll rabbit trail with me. I love the rabbit trail.
But Maya's got us on a
Okay,
clock,
great. So I'll chase mentor for just a second.
Yeah.
I just want to say that my life has been unconventional, which means that if you're living at all unconventionally, some of you are very conventional. You do what the syllabus tells you to do, and you're really great at it, i.e. Maya, cum laude. Summa cum laude, sorry. Summa cum laude, Howard University. I'm just saying, I will never have that mark, most likely, on anything that I'm doing. But the unconventional pathway, especially for people like me, I feel like mentors are essential. And not just a mentor in the general sense of life. I've found that throughout, especially these last 15, 20 years, that I've needed mentors in my marriage. I've needed mentors in theology. I've needed mentors that are sort of general life. I've needed all kinds of, I've needed musical mentors. I've needed pastoral mentors. So I think sometimes we have this idea that mentoring is like, well, I have a mentor, and it's this one person. And maybe that works for you. That's fantastic. Have a mentor. That'd be great. But I think maybe if you could widen your view a little bit about that, and who's somebody you want to be like? Who's doing what you're wishing you could do somewhere down the road 5 or 10 years from now? And how do you get around them more and get curious? I think asking more questions and rather than telling your thoughts is probably one of the ways to mentoring relationships that you can at least, I think, you'd have opportunity to gain more out of if you would stay curious. And I think the other piece about mentoring for me is this idea that somehow the mentor is going to find you. I think that's a misnomer. So again, it's back to curiosity, but I think you've got to be a curious person. And another mentor of mine says the mentee always seeks the mentor out, not the other way around. So you should be seeking the mentor, not expecting somebody to be coming on your radar that's going to seek you out.
Yeah.
If that happens to you, gift.
Yeah.
So a good mentor will let you know when you're not collaborating well or how to collaborate. So back to your question about
That was beautiful.
Wow.
That was beautiful, Maya. Yeah. Yeah.
boom.
So good.
Yeah. I just wanted to say one thing that's a parenthesis about, I was at UCLA, Maya. You were talking about your connection to UCLA. UCLA and one of the brilliant professors there who's in Grove's dictionary multiple times and books on Beethoven. He's a scholar. He asked us one day in class, all these doctoral students, what's the engine of knowledge? And we all sit there sort of dumbfounded and not sure what he wants. And the answer was curiosity. It's curiosity that drives the quest for knowledge. So if you are naturally curious about things, you are smart, you're on your way to getting knowledge, and that will keep you growing your entire life. If you don't really have much curiosity about life, I wonder how that works. Oh, don't know. Pray to God for curiosity, because it is such a valuable component, I think, to growth and just to how's that work, and I don't understand that. How might that work? So Maya, take us back now to the question.
So what's required in good collaboration? I think curiosity is one of those things. I think it's the idea that you know that you don't know everything. And that others around you know things that you don't, and they probably know things that you do better than you do.
So Maya, that brings us really to the point about ego. That you do something better than I do, or that's a different idea. How do we, and musicians, we have egos. So how do we manage that aspect of, because I love what you just said, and I think you're exactly right, but I'm thinking the ego, like, oh, that's not as good as the idea I thought of. How do we manage that in a collaborative effort? How to subvert when is the time to fight for your idea that you really think's better, and when is the time to step back and say, guys, I think what you know what I'm saying. Or Smitty, maybe you've got some wisdom here.
I have a few ideas going through my head.
Okay.
Some of them are coming from the professional realm.
Yeah.
I was a studio musician, producer, all that for years, actually before I came to Hillside.
You guys, and he is a very unassuming, kind, quiet man. You don't really know this, but he's like a living legend up here.
He's the pinnacle.
Yeah. How many albums have you done?
He's our Yoda.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We love Smitty.
I don't know, probably 100-ish.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I never have counted. I probably would be very afraid if I did count them up, how many hours it was.
Yeah.
What I started to say was from the professional realm, and this has been an interesting mix from me going from that to church, being on a church staff, working with volunteers and everything, Because I was so used to like hiring and firing. Fortunately, I never had to fire much, but I was ready to do it. If somebody at a session showed up and wasn't ready to go, was late, this or that, whatever, wasn't into it.
So I mean, it's another rabbit trail briefly, but what are the standards of professionalism? Because we're all seeking to become musicians in the professional. I'm going to get paid for this. I'm going to have a job. What are the things? I mean, you're in Hollywood. You're hiring people. What are the things you're looking for? You mentioned that, but I want you to be maybe dig down a bit deeper on that.
For me, and it may just be my own personal thing, I think good time. Do you guys know what I mean by that? It's where you feel the quarters, you feel the eighths, you feel the subdivision, you feel the 16ths, you feel the 32nds if you need to, if the tempo's slow enough. You know how to do a triplet at any tempo. You can play in 5, you can play in 7, you can play in 9. You can read, if you're going to be a pro, you can read. And I mean read like a freak. You've got to be able to walk into an orchestra session. There's 40 people that read as good or better than you do. And the conductor, it's a movie score. The guy brings the downbeat down. There's a click in your ear. You've got to deliver. Now, how do you do that? How do you do that? What is the 10,000 hours, that whole theory?
Yeah. You
guys have the prime opportunity right here. If you have 4 years ahead of you, 3 years ahead of you, 2 years, whatever. Maybe you're not married. This is the prime of your life, your prime opportunity to kick, can I say butt?
Oh no, go further than that,
Okay.
Wow,
please.
Smitty, wow.
This is the time that you guys have to kick butt and learn your craft.
Nervous pastor over here.
No, I say that that's the truth of the professional world. So if I had somebody come in this studio and they were a bass player and the time wasn't happening, I would never hire them again. Okay? So time, pitch, especially if you're a vocalist, you got to have time and pitch. Sometimes you can nail the pitch, but your time's horrible.
Yeah.
I'm not going to invite you back in a group setting, because if you held a group session back because of your bad time, we had to do take after take after take, everybody in the room knew who it was.
Sure.
I know it, so I can't hire you again. So, but you come, the opposite side of that, you do your prep, you do your work, you really kick butt and learn your craft and do all that work ahead of time. When you get there, one job's going to lead to the other, to the other, to the other. And
Which really is what happened to you.
Yeah.
You know, as a young musician right out of college, doors opened and kept opening, and you know, here we are 40 years later, you have a career.
Yeah, just a real quick story about that kicking idea. I did one of my first, I'm a rhythm player, a piano player, so most of my life was spent in rhythm sections. And so the first session I ever did with really classy players, I'm the punk kid in the group. Everybody else, I'm 21 or 2. Everybody else is 30-ish, and they are slamming players. Red light goes on, we start playing. I make it through the day, barely. I couldn't keep up with these guys. Their time. I think that maybe is where it got drilled into me. Their time was so incredible, and I realized I was the weak link. You know, here I was, hotshot coming out of college, thought I had it figured out. I took that and went home, and for weeks, metronome, just everything, just really worked on my time, and that became a focus. And so, lessons learned. You know, I learned pretty hard that day. It was a hard lesson to learn, but I did learn it.
Yeah. Smitty, when you were here at APU as a student, I feel like you have a great story of, like, you loved music so much. What was like an average, just like an average you would spend in the practice room?
Well, minimum 2 hours. Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah. Usually 7 days a week, maybe 6.
I mean,
you know.
Just saying. You know what I mean, though? It's like And I feel like I'm living in this abundance of the blessing of somebody that I've never done that in my life, if I'm just honest, right? Most of us probably haven't. But to what you're encouraging, I could not say enough to you what a prime opportunity, especially if music is going to be your career. I'm living in the abundance and the blessing of the gift that you invested in when you were a college student in the 70s, in 2019, because Smitty can free me up as a worship pastor to go do some of the things that he maybe doesn't want to do, and maybe that he's not good at. He allows me to go lane out in something that I can do. But I just want to encourage you to practice your instrument. And by the way, those of you that are in an orchestral path, how many of those are? Can you just raise your hand? I just would love to see. There's a whole bunch of you. If there's, if what you're doing feels at times like, what am I doing with this, and where am I going with this? Somebody better tell Hollywood that the orchestra's out, if that's the case. Because every film we're watching right now, you all are the ones creating the atmosphere around the best art in the world is hinged by orchestra. And so I want to just encourage those of you that I know you're hearing worship leaders talking like, what do these people have to say to me? I just want to encourage you give to the world something so beautiful that I want to encourage just to stay in your focus and in your lane. If you're an orchestra, we need more of what you're doing.
Yeah. And how do you see, I'm just thinking about, how is that ministry? And I think completely it is. I have an answer, but I'm just curious about you guys. How is that ministry? Because sometimes we get so focused, for those that worship leaders, they're in ministry, and everybody else that is doing other things, teaching at school, playing sessions in the studios, that's secular. How do you guys see that, what you just described as ministry?
Oh my gosh. Well, if art is the language that the whole world speaks, Maya just literally landed back from India on Friday, and the videos you're sending of, you don't even speak, you're not even close to the same language. Our yes even looks different, right? Their yes is a bobble. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, is he saying no? No, he's saying that's yes. But there's the video that you sent of the church you were in a week ago Sunday, and there is this beautiful moment of synergetic connection through the art of music. And I think there's ministry to be had on every front with every instrument in every space and place in the world. And what you're studying and putting your hand to, I love Kim Hutchcroft's idea that what you put your hand to determines your destiny. Yeah. And I think there's some things you're putting your hand to right now that could determine your destiny. It's just how bad do you want it? And is it God's dream for you, and are you stepping into God's dream for you? But I feel like whether you're in a secular space, you're in a space where you're in Hollywood scoring the films. I was with John Debney a few years ago this is a good story. I was at Universal, and they were filming what's the Miley Cyrus movie? The one where it's The Climb. Which one is it? Sorry. It's a different generation, but you all grew up on it. Hannah Montana. So he was scoring John Debney was scoring the music for Hannah Montana. And I was there as he was conducting the score for The Climb. And it was like this beautiful moment for me of seeing collaboration at its best, music at its best. The finest players in the world that he's having a chance to conduct, and to see how it put a landscape around the film, and to know that there's an opportunity to influence and impact the world through art and music. Sitting there in a studio, it was just amazing to know that those musicians have such an impact on so many millions of people. It's fascinating. Yeah.
Last question, and it's a hard one because I'm going to hold you to one word response, because we're going to move from collaboration into some other areas. But what's the one key thing that you look for in terms of hiring someone, in terms of their their quotient level of collaborative ability. One word that they do. What would be at the top of your list? Maya, and then Smitty, and then Brian.
One word.
Yeah.
I'd say submit.
Submission, okay.
Mine would be, if it's a guy, he's a gentleman. If it's a lady, she's a gentlewoman.
Okay, good. Wow.
And mine was going to be Philippians 2. Submit one to another.
Sister like that.
Esteem others higher than yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, well then mine is serve. Yours can be submit.
Do it.
I said the mine is serve. Yours can be submit.
Okay, good. So serving, gentlewoman or a gentleman, and submission. So, sort of next topic. When I was in college, I was so irritated by those that seemed to have a 5-year plan, and God had shared this with them, and they were going to go do that, and then after 2 years they were doing that, and then after they got hired over there, they're going to do that, and it's like, I didn't know what I was doing this weekend, much less. So it was so like, how do you know that? How do you know that? It's not fair. So I'm just thinking so many of us are graduating. In fact, if you're graduating senior in May, would you just wave at us? We are so proud of you guys.
Yeah.
That's what
Right.
That's the whole journey right there. How do you hear God's voice? And maybe it's different for all of us, but how have you heard God's voice? And as an example of holding you back when you maybe wanted to go forward, or moving you forward when you wanted to stay. What would be some of the hallmarks of being able to hear God's voice, and how God spoke to you?
I think for starters, we have to be willing to listen. And some of that is there an urgency to be willing enough to shut up? Because he talks all the time. He's saying a lot.
Was that easy or hard for you?
Oh, it's very difficult. Because so as an introvert, I love alone time. I love quiet time. I love not having chatter around me, but that doesn't mean that my mind has stopped and that my mind is still and quiet, because my thoughts are racing all the time. I'm just an introspective person by nature. So that's the challenge for me, is saying, Lord, quiet my thoughts and still my heart, and allow me. Sometimes he doesn't, like I say, he speaks all the time, and it's not always, it's like that passage in, I think it's 1 Kings 19. It doesn't always come in like a roar or a crashing wind or an earthquake. Sometimes his voice is a gentle, still, small voice, like that whisper. And so are we quiet enough to hear him whisper? Are we willing enough to hear him? Are we willing enough to be obedient when he does speak? Sometimes he says what he says, and he's like, yeah, I said what I said. We just don't want to obey what he said. And we're like, no, I don't think he said that. I don't think you said anything. I did. You're just not willing to be obedient. But I think something that Brian has taught me, and for me it was like making a move to leave everything I know and fly across the country and set up shop in a new place, and begin a journey that I didn't see myself pursuing a vocational ministry. That wasn't really on my radar. But for me, it was sensing God's peace, and that was the whisper that I needed. It's God's peace, and knowing that, when a door opens or when opportunity comes, it could look completely different than what I envisioned or what I was praying about or what I thought I was supposed to be doing. I'm all about the doing, and I've been learning that God is more interested in who I am and the being, and my willingness to be obedient in, letting him refine my character, and letting my desire not to be to just refine my skill set, but to not let that be the thing that I worship above what he wants for me and what he wants with that skill set. And so when I talk about serving or submitting is as I'm listening for his voice, or I'm pleading for the stillness and the quiet to hear how he's directing me. Well, am I submitting the thing that could get in the way? What are the distractions, the other voices, or for me, it's the things that I could be doing that I prize as, like my achievements, my skill sets, the things that I prize as honestly, if I'm honest, sometimes my what I stake my identity on. Like, no, am I willing to submit all those things and let all of those other voices fade away and let, all of the distractions, become second to here's who I worship and what my skills are for, who my skills are supposed to serve. And when I'm in that posture, I hear a lot better because now he's leading and guiding my desires to match and align with his. And it just makes the road a lot more smoother, and it makes peace even more evident.
Yeah, Brian, how have you sensed God speaking to you?
Yeah, I would say, peace has been the guiding sail for me. And by the way, peace doesn't always mean there's no chaos. Peace just means, oh no. Sometimes peace is, oh no, I have to go do that. And I remember as a young college student, sensing a call to ministry, and that meant moving to the Phoenix area. And I'm like, that is the most insane thing. I'm gonna melt. And so I remember sitting down with my dad though, and my dad and my mom and dad, and just saying, guys, this is not the plan. And if it is the plan, how do I know it's the plan? This whole idea of what is God's will, and we began to pray very specifically. And so I think sometimes discerning the will of God, you got to spend some time with him, so I think time has to do with it. But I remember praying specifically towards a salary number, which was like, what's the basic college-age person need to survive in ministry in Arizona? And I think it was like $25,000 or something, which I was like, I'm going to be rich. Right. And I remember getting the call back, and literally the salary was within $1,000. And I knew it was the Lord.
Over or above? I'm just...
Yeah, it was under. It's $24,000, but I got the health benefits tucked in, so there you go. Hey, you got to go for the health benefits if you can get them. But I remember just sensing a piece of like this was a moment of God's hand in my life, and there was peace. I remember I was interviewing at another church before I got to Hillside, and all through the process, I had been candidating at this church for almost all of 2012, and all through the process, I kept going. I was there 5 times, 5 weekends. I don't know how God bless you, Cornerstone. I don't know how they didn't know I wasn't looking at another church, but that was happening. But all through the process, there was just never a sense of peace. And so then it wasn't supposed to happen. And I stepped into the process with Cornerstone, and it was step after step, there was peace. And there was more peace, and there was more peace, and there was more confirmation. So, I think C.S. Lewis calls the Holy Spirit the wild goose. And I love that idea. Think about a wild goose running around. I think a life in God is kind of like that. You're sort of chasing God and trying to figure it out. He's the Holy Ghost in some of our environments. Right. The Holy Spirit in others, but Spirit and Ghost, there's a lot of mystery to be found in the will of God. But look for his peace.
Definitely. Smitty, over your career, I know just you telling me a little bit, you've had major changes and changes over a long career of going, of coming, of staying, of leaving. How has God evidenced his voice to you?
Well, when you asked that question, you made me reflect way, way back. For me, that's quite a ways. When I was, I don't know, maybe 10.
What was Moses like?
Yeah. What was it like before dirt was invented? Well, let me tell you about that. I do know, for all you electronic and computer geek guys, I was around before MIDI, okay? I remember going to the AES show when they debuted MIDI. So
before there was MIDI, there was Smitty.
Before there was Smitty, there was MIDI.
Bravo, Maya.
Swish.
So good.
Hey, well, just to piggyback on that, one of my email addresses, here's another one for you MIDI nerds. My email address, give me some slack on this. It's Smitty Price, right? SMIDIPRICE.
My God.
Good. I like
I see what he did there.
That's kind of an
Brian,
inside
what
joke.
was your email address back in the day?
Do you guys ever do that? First email addresses? I was Dr. Bebop. at hotmail.com.
Well, all right.
Fire me up.
right. Hotmail.
No, going back, you made me think way back. So I'll get through this quick. When I was about 10, I remember thinking, I don't want a job like my dad's. My dad loved his job, but I didn't want his type of job, which was a factory, 40 hours a week. He loved it. I would have hated it. So I remember pretty early on coming up with that realization and going, I want a job that I would do for a hobby. Okay? Little did I know that 56 years later, I'd be doing that. I would have done that because I started working when in music when I was 14. I started playing for funerals and weddings. And but anyway, fast forward a little bit. 8th grade, I had a pastor who pulled me aside one day and basically prophesied and got my attention because I admired this guy. I was just a punk 8th grader. Why would he, single me out and tell me what he told me, which was pretty awesome. And gave me a sense of responsibility, a good kind of responsibility. It didn't shame me or scare me or whatever. It just gave me I think it was like, get serious, one of those kind of wake-up calls. Then when I was, I think, 20, so while I was attending here, another pastor did a very similar thing. Said something along the line of, I see gifting, I see God in you, I see you using that gift for God. Whew. Whoa, me. Could almost cry. Think about that. So fast forward, then a couple more years, I started doing sessions, secular sessions. Wasn't a lot of Christian albums going on back then. And things started happening right out of school. I was going to do a master's, but things were happening in the studios, and I was getting really good gig, making good money for a 24-year-old back in 76. And so I pursued that. Didn't do my master's. Started doing movies through some mentors, some good people that were kind to me. Started doing some movie writing, TV writing. Got more into that for 3-4 years, making even better money. And it reached a point where I just it wasn't like a thunderbolt or anything. There was just this realization that came over me like, this is fun, but it has no eternal value. And so I decided to shift my direction a little bit. And within what had been 90% secular, 10% Christian music, within 2 years' time, without me hardly even trying, I think God just honored the desire in my heart, and that 90-10 flipped the other way. To where I was doing 90% in Christian music, 10% in secular. And I've never looked back. I might have had a bigger house, I might have had a bigger car, a fancier car, but I've never looked back. That's been the sweet spot of my life. So,
We just have a couple of minutes left, and just Smitty, just thank you for sharing with us something so close to your heart and so personal to you about God speaking to you and His grace to you in your life. How would you guys describe, we just have a couple minutes left, about living a life of significance? What does that mean for you? And you're all at different stages, sort of beginning, middle, on the other side of middle. How does that, I'm just, I am too. I'm right there with Smitty. He and I are both on the other side of middle. How does when I ask that, in terms of what does that mean to you in terms of living a life of significance in maybe opposition or as opposed to having a career? What might that mean to you?
Well, I'll start, and I would say just if you have a note or something in your iPhone, just mark this down. Michael Todd, marked. I'm not kidding. Just go watch that sometime when you have a minute. Michael Todd, marked is the message, and I feel like I just watched the message. I probably watched it 5 times. I just watched it again on Saturday because it was raining so hard, and had a young college graduate just trying to figure out her young professional journey with my wife and I this weekend, and like, we just need to watch this one again. And I feel like God was speaking to me again about a life of significance, and he talks about in the book of Samuel this idea of King Saul and David, and how David's unconventional pathway was that he just put his hand to what he knew he was supposed to be doing. So he's out in the field with the sheep, and he's working his instrument because he just loves Jesus, and it's a way that he connects. He doesn't love Jesus yet, but he loves God. He loves God, and that's a way that he can express his love for God. And eventually the fast-forward version is that King Saul is being tormented. And if you remember in that passage, and he eventually, his servant says, well, there's this kid David, he's like a shepherd boy, and he's got some music. I don't know, it seems like you're being tormented, and maybe some music will slow that down a little bit. So King Saul sends for him, and David knew he had a mark on his life, which is kind of the essence of the message. And it was just, David got caught being faithful, and God was able to elevate him into his future. And so I want to be caught being faithful. I think that's if there was a significant mark on my life, I want people to look back when I'm laying in a coffin and say, dude, that guy he just did it. He was so faithful. He just loved people so well. He led worship with passion and conviction, and he loved people more than he loved leading worship. And I would love to be known for that more than a great worship leader, living a life of significance, of loving people. I think sometimes we can love the thing that we're doing more than the people that are around us, and maybe that's you. And if that's you, then maybe this year is about flipping the script and focusing on loving people equal to your music, because you need to be in the practice room 2 hours.
Smitty, Maya, we have 3 minutes left for your responses.
I apologize as a pastor.
Thinking of significance, I'm just reminded again how significant it is as worship leaders, worshipers, whether you're on the stage or in the audience. The significance of that, in that every weekend there is an amazing amount of people that are in great need. Finances, marriage, personal, depression, financial, whatever. And we get the opportunity to be a part of communicating the answer to that. To me, that's like the ultimate significance. The other thing that I think of every now and then, and I kind of save it as far as sharing it, but one thing that helps me as far as when you're doing something repetitive, like our services come with amazing regularity every week, this may be the last time you do it. Wow. Yep. You know? Yep. This may be the last time you do it. If you knew that ahead of time, how would you play? How would you prepare? How would you lead? How would you pray? Would your drive, for us as worshiping musicians, would your drive to the facility be different? Yeah. I bet it would. Yeah. I bet it would. Thank you. You would be praying like gangbusters that God would move that night. So,
Maya, you have the last word in 60 seconds.
Ooh, good luck.
Well, I think they said it all, but the last thing I'll add to piggyback is that maybe find significance or value in serving other people with what you have and with what you're capable of. Is there, kind of what Smitty was saying, like, there's so many people in need. And there's a reason you're here. Like, we wouldn't be breathing if we didn't still have meaning in our breath. And then the things that we can do with our hands or our vocal cords or whatever it is that you've been gifted to do, there is a need around you that you have the ability to serve.
To close us out, I'm just going to have Professor Stephen Martin come and benedictus and maybe just mention these and what these represent for us. Would you guys just one more time thank Maya, Smitty, Brian for their ministry today from Hillside Community Church.
Thank you all so much. It really means a lot to hear from you today, so thanks for sharing a bit of your story. I just want to mention this. You may have a younger brother or sister or a high school group back home or a church that you know of. If you didn't get one of these, we want to make sure you have one. It's an academy that happens in the summer that they may be interested in. And so it's specific training available for the arts, for worship, for music. And so we want to make that known. And I'll just pray us out of here if that's all right. Father, thank you for today. Thank you for the rain. Thank you for the green hills, for the life of spring that's right around the corner. And even in the gray days, thank you for giving us the chance to recognize that life. Thank you for the discipline that's represented in this room, the hours and hours and hours that you have gifted to us, these hours. May we not take those for granted. Thank you for the team today. Thank you for the thoughts that were shared. And would you bless the rest of this week in your name?